What is up, everyone? What is up? The Wrestling Re-Up back again, episode 54. As you can see, it is a solo edition. My partner in crime, the French Fry Pro, is out of town this weekend. He's away at a family gathering, but he probably potentially might pop up in these chats like he did last time. So, nonetheless, no weeks off with the Wrestling Re-Up. We are here every week. And we're definitely not going to be missing this week because we just came off a spectacular, amazing, presidential level weekend of wrestling all around from both AEW and WWE. But let's get into a quick little Percy's. I don't have anything too much on the docket for the Percy's, but I mean, one thing that's been stuck in my mind, two things I'll say. First thing is the continuation of last week is this Clips album. This Clips album is so amazing. And for the first time to hear him after 17 years and to still sound this fresh and almost like, again, they still sound like they ain't prime, man. Like Malice, again, hasn't been rapping like this in a while. To go 13 tracks for 13 tracks, clean 41 minutes, no skips, production's amazing. It is something that it's been on repeat the entire week, and I just can't go one week. I just can't give it just like the opening week after again sitting a whole entire week of listening to this album. It is amazing. Everyone did their thing on it. Push, Malice, Tyler, Kendrick, Stove God Cook, Ab Liva, Nas. Everybody on the album did their thing, and it is an early contender, my contender for album of the year. Even though I haven't been keeping up as much as I used to, but again, I put that as like, hey, the hot shit would have been popping out if you heard about it. So the fact that I haven't heard much competition in the way for them to challenge their throne, but right now, if you haven't listened to it already, I need everybody to go check out Clips. Let Gotham Sort 'Em Out album. It is top tier rapping. It is hip hop at its finest, and you will not be wasting 41 minutes. If I ever need 40 minutes to kill, I know what I'm doing, and that's putting on that album, just letting it play from jump, from Birds Don't Sing all the way down to the last track, which I'm blanking on right now. But what an amazing album! What an amazing comeback! The rollout's been great. The deep dives that you're able to go in through with all of their lyrics and just their conversations that they've been giving out on their press tours and whatnot have just been enlightening. And like I said, like last week, if I didn't mention already, maybe I said it off the pod when I was talking to Moody. But man, for Pusha to be about 48, Malice to be 53, and again, not even just them, but just like their personification of with this, but just to be able in this era of hip hop where we have the people that I grew up to. I remember buying Lord Willin out of Town Records back in '02. To hear these guys 20 years later just sound fresh, young, but then also healthy. That's the most important part. They're healthy. You know, they've lived a life. They've all three of them, including Pharrell, have gone on and they've done amazing things, whether it be within fashion, within music, or just spiritually trying to find themselves. But then again, to take such a long hiatus, but then still come back and still drop their best album, in my opinion. This is their best album. And again, to say that their best albums in 2025 after a 16-year break, it just shows you how great they are at their craft. And so I can't go just giving out a short week. Again, I gotta give this album so good. It's got to be this Percy for 2 weeks in a row because it's that good. Highly recommend anybody to go listen the to the Clips album. Let God sort them out. You will not be disappointed. Other Percy's, I've been saying it. I said it a month ago about this time when my Commanders finished minicamp. We were in the dog days of summer for football. It is coming to an end. Coaches, first year coaches are there with their team right now, practicing rookie camp, starting. Commanders just checked in on Friday, and we here, baby. We here. I know this might not be Moody's time of the year. He said football season for him starts week 1. I'm like, nah, B. As soon as training camp starts, as soon as they put them pads on and start practicing for training camp, that is when football season starts, and we're here. Vets on my team for the Commanders. We get into practice on Tuesday. Our vets come in on Tuesday. Hopefully by then, Terry McLaurin is a paid man for whatever it is. I don't care. You guys can be fiscally responsible. You are a $1 billion organization. I know there's a cap, but you know how to make it work and not have it impede whatever plans that you have going into the future. So just pay the man what he's owed. You know he's owed, and you got to put him up with Jaden Daniels to keep building that continuity. But at the end of the day, I got faith that it's going to get done. It better be done so he don't miss no practice because I want to see that continuity just continue. I don't want no breaks. I don't want this dude signing the week before week one. He need to sign. He need to sign. You need to get him signed on before camp start. He should not miss a day of camp, and he should get all the receivers, everybody with Jaden, hit the ground running as soon as possible, and don't have any bumps in the hurdles. So I need y'all before Dan Quinn and Adam Peters come out for their press conference on Tuesday. Terry McLaurin better be signed. You have until Tuesday before you come out for your press conference to get Terry McLaurin signed. If he's not signed, got some problems. We got some problems. But we're not here for the football talk. We're here for the wrestling. So let's get into this show.
Doors opening. Step back to allow customers to exit.
Put in who's the crowd. I would say, hey, Samson. Usually here with my tag partner, the French Fry Bro, Booty on the top rope. And you're listening to Wrestling Rhea Podcast. A weekly stroll through the avenue of wrestling. Follow us everywhere on social media, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, lock, comment, subscribe, do all the social media things. We told you we're going to get that bumping up for the second season of Wrestling Rhea Podcast. Welcome everyone, episode 54. 54, and we're coming off the spectacular week of wrestling. Such a spectacular week. No even need to just, ad-lib about it. Let's just kind of get into the recap because we had 4 shows, 3 points were on the line between AEW All In Texas, WWE Evolution, and what else? We had Great American Bash, NXT. Obviously, we don't count Saturday Night's main events because they're just kind of elevated, basically television shows. But man, no misses out of anything. I mean, the weakest show you could probably say was Saturday Night's main event, but even that, there were still some entertaining moments out there. Goldberg had his best match in such a long time, his longest match in a while as well, but then being 14 minutes. But man, such a presidential weekend of wrestling. This is the best weekend of wrestling that we've had in a long time, and that's including the past WrestleManias. And that's not even just saying WrestleMania itself, but everything that else goes on without WrestleMania. As you know, all the promotions are running their shows at the same time. But man, this weekend, and then you also had Supercard of Honor, and that was a great match with Bandito and Batista for the Ring of Honor Championship, which Bandito successfully defended. But man, what an awesome weekend. There were some downers as well. We got some sad news from Adam Cole. Surprisingly, he just came out. We and Moody were watching it live, and we were just like, what happened? Why is this a 4-way title match for the TNT Championship? And, come to find out, something significant has happened to Adam Cole, and he came out. It sounded like, didn't want to call it a retirement speech, but he did mention the word retirement, but he said he's going to be out for a while. So fingers crossed for Adam Cole. You're a good dude. You're a great wrestler. And, whenever we see these type of things, we always got to remember it's just a TV show. And these people are real life people that just, love what they do and they put their bodies on the lines. And that mat is not a bed. Those ropes are not rubber bands that you don't feel it the next day. So we don't know the significant the specifics around why Adam Cole is going to be away, and he has all the right to have his privacy around that. But hopefully, this is not a career ender for him. And whenever he is able to come back, whether it be next year, 10 years, 20 years from now, to borrow a Jay-Z line from, or I guess who's that? This is off the Black album. We hope Adam Cole is healthy and is able to live a healthy life, whether he has wrestling or not. But again, sad to see. Also, another sad thing to see out of this weekend was my guy Seth Rollins injuring his knee off of a springboard against his match against LA Knight on Saturday night's main event. When we were watching it live, I was like many at the time, just kind of like, nah, this is ain't. He was a work. Because like he just landed on his feet like properly, you didn't really get to see like the knee buckle as you would in certain situations, but he knee buckled. He went down, crawled to the corner. LA Knight was trying to come over and attack him, but the referee had to push him away. Started talking to Paul, and again, according to the dirt sheets, Seth was supposed to win that match, but they had to, go to a plan B with him being injured and not be able to maneuver around, and LA Knight ended up getting the win. Seth Rollins was on Rich Eisen's show this week, being a guest host, and he started off the show kind of just talking about his knee and the process that he's been through in the last 72 hours at that point, and said that he tried to get an MRI. The knee was too swollen, so they don't have a full diagnosis of it yet. But he said that when he came, that he felt it's the same knee, exact same move that he hurt back in 2015, and he said it felt the exact same thing. So, if anything, I can't remember exactly what that was. I believe it was an ACL, it could be an MCL or a meniscus tear, but right now he's saying that he's going to probably be out for a long time. I was mentioning it to Moody off pod that if it's something like an ACL, maybe he might be able to get back in 9 months. Uh, still have that briefcase because he still has a whole year to cash it in. But if they find out that it's going to have to be a longer than a year, then don't be surprised sooner rather than later they're going to find a way to take that briefcase off, or that briefcase is going to be moving over to somebody else. So, um, glad to see that that people are that Seth is hate to see Seth. That's my guy, and he was just killing it. I like what the Visionary group was doing with Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman and Paul Heyman. They finally getting a groove, and then they had to hit this stumble. That was a very disappointing thing to come out of it. But there was also a lot of positives to come out of the weekend as well. A lot of very happy moments. This is why we call it. This is wrestling. This is wrestling cinema. The wonderful worldwide of wrestling. We saw in that fatal four way. It was Kyle Fletcher. Moody and I both did absolutely terrible in our picks for All In Texas. We ended up in a tie, a record of 2-5 on the card. Kyle Fletcher was our pick. We did not know that Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara and Roderick Strong would be participants in that match. But we still felt comfortable, even after the fact we didn't change our picks, that Kyle Fletcher was going to come out with the TNT title. He did not. And Dustin Rhodes, 53-year-old Dustin Rhodes, or somewhere in his mid-50s, ended up getting his first AEW title, winning the TNT Championship in his home state, which was a special moment. We saw Athena win the Women's Casino Gauntlet and now has a title match at her own behest against Toni Storm, because Mercedes ended up pulling a New England Patriots, going undefeated all the way up to the big game, and then losing to Toni Storm in a hell of a match. You had, again, we got Okada versus Omega, which both me and Moody had picked Okada for Omega to win, but nope. It's funny, as we were watching through the show, we were kind of like, hey, is this a time where there's a lot of happiness going on? Maybe there's some upsets that you got to have the bad person win. Maybe it clues in. Maybe that Moxley might retain. No, Okada ended up winning, unifying the titles for the international and the continental titles. We'll talk about what's up for him next when we get to the Dynamite recap. And then obviously the show ended as what we expected for weeks. We try to doubt it. We try to guess possibly something being a little bit more different. Maybe being WrestleMania 39 instead of WrestleMania 40, but this ended up being WrestleMania 40 as we expected, with the Hangman Page, Jon Moxley, Texas Death Match, which was a great hell of a match. Brutal stuff. Jon Moxley getting stabbed on his head. They have the spike board doing bumps off of that. Then you got the WrestleMania 40 moment where everybody's kind of popping in. You get Darby Allin coming in. You got Bryan Danielson coming in. Swerve comes out to help. And, all in all, you see Jon Moxley getting hanged by a chain. And I actually like that it didn't end in a pinfall. It ended up in a TKO or a submission. in a submission ending. And yeah, for the first time in over close to a year, we get to see the AEW championship. And the Masked Man had pointed this out. It was interesting that you think that they would have switched it out. We were guessing they might be showing off a new belt or something like that. No, they put Brian Danielson's belt in there that they wanted, and they left it in there shut. And when he opened it up, they had the side plates for Brian Danielson on there. So the Death Riders kept their word that you were not going to see this title since the moment the last time you saw this title. They ain't take it out. They ain't switched the belt or anything like that. It was the same belt. And now we are able to see the AEW Championship on television and not in a briefcase. So amazing show for AEW Texas. We also saw the Young Bucks lose their EVP titles to Hangman, to Swerve and Ospreay, and that was a great match as well. There was some really great sequencing in there. What else did we have on here? The men's. I took the wrong guess. So I said the women's. I figured one of the first two participants in the women's contenders Casino Gauntlet match was going to win the match, and that the men's it was going to be somebody else outside of Mark Briscoe and MJF. It was wrong. It was vice versa. MJF ends up winning the Casino Gauntlet, but that's not after Mark Briscoe pretty much did all the work. He hit his finisher, and as the typical crafty heel that MJ is, comes in, throws Mark Briscoe out, gets the 1-2-3, and now MJF has a contract to face off against Hangman or whoever else at the time will have that belt. So great all-around show. Personally, probably my favorite show out of the weekend was AEW All In. I thought it was a 5-hour show, but actually about 6-hour show, but you didn't miss a beat. You did not miss a beat, and you should be proud of yourselves. And you guys put on the best kind of major event so far this year in wrestling, period. So shout out to AEW and LA in Texas. Y'all did y'all thing. But again, another challenger for this week for top wrestling show of the year is the WWE Evolution Part 2. And man, there's so much to talk about and bringing it up on the calendar. Evolution recap. I mean, this was a tie. No, I think Moody beat me. No, this was also a tie. So the only win came off from NXT Great American Bash. So we both ended up in 5-2. So this week points it was 1-2. 1-2 for me. Moody was Moody was 1-0-2. So he picked up a win, but overall in the season record so far for season 2, we're 2-2-4. But Evolution, great matches all around. JC Jane ended up defending her title successfully against Jordan Grace with the help of Blake Monroe turning on her, as it was pretty easy to kind of predict. The kind of only surprising thing that it's happened so quick. They just kind of started building their relationship, Jordan Grace and Blake Monroe. But I mean, you could tell that there was no way that they were going to go on for that long. So not surprised. And then again, people want to doubt JC, but she's been doing good. She's been a really good heel champ and someone that people can doubt, but she always keeps coming out on top. So shout out to JC Jane. The Fatal 4-Way Women's Tag Team match: Judgment Day, Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair, Zaruka, and the Kabuki Warriors. As you would imagine, with all that talent to the ring, of course you were going to get an amazing match. And yes, you did. And the Judgment Day ended up retaining as well. Not too surprising with that. I think we both went Charlotte and Alexa, but again, Moody was also kind of hedging his bet possibly on the Judgment Day also retaining. Battle Royale for the Women's Championship match at Clash in Paris. We had predicted. It's funny, with as many people out in a Battle Royale, we like to pick as like maybe 2, but I guess since we didn't know the full roster of the Battle Royale, we kind of wanted to keep it simple, but we felt comfortable in our pick. It was Stephanie Vaquer, and we were definitely right. Great match, great ending. Last Legend being a finalist in that as well is not eye-opening, but it's something to keep your head on a swivel, especially if she probably makes her main roster, reappears on the main roster in the near future. Tiffany Stratton defends her title successfully against Trish Stratus. Not anything to be surprised about, but again, Trish, again, for being someone like her mid to late 40s, still looks like she can still go this in this in this era of wrestling. So shout out to both of them. Naomi versus Jade in a no holds barred match. Jade ended up getting the win as we expected. That was the expected thing from this night was Jade getting this win. Because again, it felt like, hey, Naomi has the briefcase. She could take this L and probably cash it in at SummerSlam, especially when Jade is going through her title match against Tiffany, this, that, and the third. But not so fast, my friend, as Lee Corso would say. Prior to that, we had a great triple threat match between Becky Lynch, Bayley, and Lyra. I said I wasn't too fan. I wasn't more fan of the Lyra portion of the build because I'm just like, you sound like a child here, and I'm just a little annoyed by your motivations and how you kind of thrust yourself into this predicament. Nothing against Lyra the person, just how the character and their motivations have been presented on television just wasn't resonating with me. But I already knew, everybody knew that you put these three women in a match, it's gonna be fire. It was fire. Becky Lynch retained, and we're getting we'll continue on, but Lyra and Becky will get their one-on-one singles rematch at SummerSlam coming up in a couple weeks. But again, the show stealer, and some say the best match of the weekend was Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky for the Women's World Championship. And prior to the match, everybody was saying this feels almost kind of like Hangman and Jon Moxley. It was just you're being so heavy-handed by how this match is supposed to end, and how Rhea's Ripley's 0-7 against Io Sky, and this, that, and the third, and how hey, it just seems like Rhea is going to win this title. Stephanie won a Casino Battle Royale earlier in the night, so it seems like we're just on a collision course between Stephanie back here and Rhea Ripley. Well, Rhea Ripley and Io Sky put down a presidential level match. Ref bump. Rhea can't get the three. Her anger starts getting the best of her. They start brawling outside. Io jumps off the top outside. It's crazy stuff. Everything you want. And then the most surprising thing to come out this weekend, my girl Naomi, our girl Naomi, as this show has been a big supporter of Naomi from the jump when we started, comes out with the briefcase. And for a moment, I was like, is this one of those times where they come out with the briefcase, they try to cash it in, but some shenanigans happens where they don't really get to officially cash it in? Nah, she cashed it in. Then I was like, all right, don't be the first black woman, don't be the first person, especially being a black woman, to lose a cash in, because women's is 100% on cash in rate. Don't be the first person to lose on a cash in. She did not. And Naomi Trinity Fatu is now your world heavyweight champion. And a stunner. And it was such a great moment, both in storyline, but then also just outside of story and the shoot work of it, of just Naomi and Trinity and everything that she's been through, leaving, coming back, and then doing everything. We've been vocal on this podcast for many months about saying, why come back if you just gonna be jobbing? You still doing this? And then it all worked out. She switched her character. I don't think she needed to switch her character, but even her switching her character where she had at out, hella entertaining. Proceed with caution with the Rita Power Rangers laugh. It's amazing moment. Amazing moment. My bias would say that this is probably the best thing. It's hard to power rank the matches over this weekend, but man, what a show, what a surprise. And I'm so happy for Naomi to have won a championship. And I can't wait to see what her championship run looks like, especially in this new version of her as Proceed with Caution Naomi, just looking crazy as hell. That's a very iconic picture of her holding that championship belt, just like with that crazed look after the match was over. And yeah, what a great weekend. And that's not also to push back. There was also NXT Great American Bash, which was also a great show. This is where Moody did get his one and get the 1 point. I was wrong on. So I was Moody was actually perfect on this. I was 3-2. I had Jasper Evans over Javon. Javon had won that, and Izzy Dame, I had her taking the title over Sol Ruka. That did not happen. But other than that, great matches. Blake Monroe and Jordan Grace, they were able to work uh, properly together. This is before the heel turn happened on Evolution tonight. And then Obafemi and Yokishi Inamura. Great match. Obviously, Obafemi was going to be hard. We said Obafemi was going to win. But talking on me, I'll catch a charge. What up, Nudie? What up? Yeah, Obafemi ended up retaining it, but it's not because Inamura had it. Inamura had it, but Josh Briggs kept interfering. And now, we'll get to it, but it seems like we're gonna be building up the split of Josh Briggs and Inamura because Inamura just wants to do it his way. He wants to do it the honorable way, and Josh Briggs be like, nah, man, you gotta do it the sleazy way. So we got a triple threat coming up soon for them. I believe that's happening next week or in a couple weeks. But great overall weekend, presidential level weekend. There's nothing to complain about other than just the sad moments of Adam Cole and Seth Rollins. But as far as just the wrestling product of what they put out, chef's kiss. Everything was perfect on this weekend, and it's going to be an all-time weekend that we're always going to be looking back to when we think about what were some of the best kind of moments in wrestling. And this 3 to 4 days of wrestling was just amazing. It was amazing to go off of. But that was the weekend at hand that we just came through. Let's get into the week that was, and let's get into these Raw recaps. And let's see. Moody is able. While he's away, he's also in chat, so he could also provide some context if he does have anything I missed. But Naomi's first promo as a champ was our primo of the week for Raw. Moody also included that we are getting a triple threat for Io, Naomi, and Rhea. Kind of jumbled all their names together in one at SummerSlam. But yeah, man, it was great to see Naomi and I guess get her State of the Union address. Another surprising thing about Naomi winning this title is the fact that, usually, again, in the shoot, we understand that there's a lot of relationships in WWE, and Naomi is married to Jimmy Uso. Jimmy's on SmackDown. They usually like to keep people in relationships together on the same shows because for logistic reasons and traveling reasons. But right now, Naomi is a women's champion on Raw. Jimmy's still on SmackDown, so there's a little bit of changing of normal approach of how that's working out. But it was great. Obviously, people want to give her chance of you deserve it, and she's still playing the heel character, and so I love how she kind of like we don't get none of that. Y'all wasn't with me now, but now y'all want to be with me. So I like how she it's all love, Naomi. It's all love. I love the character, and like I said, it's gonna be looking fun. It's gonna be great. I love when Io came out and she tried to talk smack, and then Naomi was like, "No, I did what you just said." That was hilarious. That was hilarious. It's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out. This match again, the fact that now we're getting the actual legit triple threat match from beginning, and not just Naomi kind of thrusting herself in there in the last 5 minutes. It's gonna be a fire match. So already this SummerSlam card is getting packed. I mean, SummerSlam's in like it's about 2 weeks actually away from today. First 2-night SummerSlam that we're having ever. And there's got to be at least I feel like 8 matches already announced. I haven't looked at the card in depth, but I know there's a lot of matches already announced. Moody says it's funny that she has rejected Cloudflare because she was delusional heel. She knew she was feeling the glow. Facts. But Primo, just to start off that show, and then again to give Naomi her flowers. Other things that happened, again, if you want to jump all the way to the end of the match, the night for me was this is a kind of a 2-on-1. I enjoyed the men's gauntlet match. So we had a gauntlet match of Braun Breaker, Penta, CM Punk, Jey Uso, and I want to say LA Knight to see who would be a number 1 contender for Gunther's championship at SummerSlam. Braun Breaker was running through it for the most of the match. He eliminated pretty much everybody up until the last contender, which was CM Punk. But Punk ended up getting the win. And then I believe there was a beatdown happening at the end of it. Jey Uso tried to help out. The numbers game was too strong on their side for the Braun and Bronson. And then all of a sudden, I mean, you heard it in the crowd. I'm not sure if they knew or they were just kind of just inherently chanting for Roman to come back. But I was just at that moment, I was like, man, Roman ain't coming back right now. This, that, and the third. But then all you hear is the do 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 dun, dun, dun. And the OTC is back. The OTC is back. My thoughts was wondering. I was like, man, we literally haven't seen Roman since WrestleMania. And so he came back, speared Bronson, speared Jake. What's not Braun Strowman, Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, and lifted up his little cousin Jay Uso. But he looked hesitantly at CM Punk, and they didn't say much to each other, but you could tell that, hey, I ain't come out here for you. I came out for my own reasons. But the OTC's back. CM Punk is the number one contender, and I have this as a mid rising because I'm just curious to see how this plays out. I'm curious to see how this plays out and where it leads us to. But right now, it's definitely got my intrigue, especially when you got the OTC back, especially for a major pay per view in SummerSlam coming up in a couple weeks. So shout out to both of them. Gunther versus CM Punk should be a fun match as well. It'll be good to see CM Punk. This will be his second title match after he lost to John Cena at not Crown Jewel, King of the Ring, or not a champion. So this one seems like he possibly could take him off, but again, Gunther just won a few months ago. I'm not sure how Roman's gonna play into it. Maybe even Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman, like not Braun Strowman, Braun Breaker. So let's just see how that kind of plays out. But you got about 2 weeks to continue to build this storyline. Lyra defeating Bailey in a 2 out of 3 falls number one contenders match at SummerSlam. Moody has this as a mid. I'm assuming mid rising. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Moody. I have this as my shake. I'm a little disappointed that Bailey lost this match. That's just me. Again, if I had to think about it, like Bailey had one singles match for the title, for the Intercontinental title versus versus Becky Lynch, and it ended up in a no contest or she ended up winning in a DQ because Lyra interfered in the match. So for her to have that be her only true title match, and it had to end with the interference of Lyra, but Lyra ends up getting basically 2 matches just for bitching and complaining like Rhea Ripley. Again, rubs me the wrong way. I'm like, am I supposed to see Lyra as the heel? I mean, as the face? Because right now, I do not see that. She just seems like a petulant child that just cries and moans her way into getting these matches. Now, again, it's not saying anything about her as a person, as a real person, or as a wrestler. She's a great wrestler. I think the character's motivations just do not align. Unless you're trying to tell me this is the beginning of a heel turn for Lyra, this doesn't make any absolute sense why I should be rooting for Lyra as a face. So that's why I have it at shade, because I know the Becky and Lyra match is going to be great. Though I'd rather have Bailey actually get her title match without interference from Lyra, and then actually see if she could pull it out. And then also, so the fact they also dropped it on during the show that Bailey hasn't won a match since her return. She's still been defeated. She's been defeated. So to see that like Bailey's going on this losing streak again, maybe you're trying to make her as a heel, but right now, as far as what we're saying, yeah, again, like we said this before, Moody, Lyra is the same as Rhea before WrestleMania. But at least with Rhea before WrestleMania, you can make it make sense. You can make it make sense from a business standpoint. It's like, all right, we know we're not going to not have Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania not facing for this title. You thought we were going to get Bianca versus Rhea. All of a sudden, Ego's thrown in there, but you know Rhea is going to be put in that match. Now, again, from a storyline perspective, you lost. You overlooked Io, and you lost your title the next night. So again, like you saying, Moody, she complained and bitched her way into a main event, and it's the same thing that's happened with Lyra. And I find it hard for me to root for her as a face if that's what WWE wants me to root for her as far as the storyline goes. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, it's going to be a great match. I just find it hard to root for Lyra in this storyline perspective because, again, I'm just like, you just complain. You just complain and you just act like a 12-year-old. And like I said for weeks, stay out of grown folks' business. You should have let Bailey get her match. You could have interfered. You could have Becky Lynch after the match. You didn't have to do it in her match. And that was the only chance she had in a legitimate like one-on-one opportunity. Well, she didn't interfere in your match. So that's all I gotta say about that. That's all I gotta say about that. Other things that was also noted was that Moody had on his card was Judgment Day retaining against the Kabuki Warriors for the women's tag team titles. Again, decent match. He had that shake. It was a decent match. I think we're building up to, as it was announced, that Charlotte got Alexa and them a title match at SummerSlam for Judgment Day's title. So that should be a good match. But again, I'm glad Kabuki Warriors, like, they good together. But again, you're giving Kyrie Sane a lot of singles promos. Asuka just came back. Rather, again, the women's division, especially on Raw, is lacking. So I can understand the need for tag teams. I'd rather have them as a single champion contenders rather than fighting for tag team champions. But that's just me. That's just me. But none of that. Other than that, that was a great start off for the week for the flagship show for Raw. Nothing much else that I can add there. Unless Moody has something in the comments, I'm going to move over to the bodega. But before we get into the bodega, there is some time jump news. Shotzi, former Shotzi Blackheart, arrives at House of Glory and makes her debut. That happened on July 11th. So that was last Friday? Yeah, last Friday. So we should have had covered it last week. But yes, Shotzi is now on House of Glory making her debut. So shout out to her for finding work so soon after being released WWE. I've always been a fan of Shotzi. Love the tattoos, love the gimmick, like when she used to come out with the tank and whatnot. And yeah, she was just fun. I wish they had some more opportunities for her, but I know there was a lot of things, whether it be injuries and life stuff, that kind of like, you know, start and stop to her push at certain times. But it's good to see that she's still in the business and she's getting shine and she's getting good looks too. So shout out to Shotzi and hopefully see some more continued success as you make your way through the industry. But let's get into the bodega NXT. We had pretty tame show in my opinion. The difference in opinion that we have on here from Moody and I, he has this as a primo. I have this as a mid rising. But Tony D'Angelo defeating Luca and Crucifino and Channing Stacks in the family business match, or whatever they call it, match, triple threat that was set up by Adriana Rizzo. Pretty fun match. I was low key pulling for Luca to win the match, maybe just because the other two are a little bit more established, and this guy was also trying to make his way as his own. But it was a pretty entertaining match, especially when you got to the end when things started getting hectic, especially when Stacks brought out the crowbar. That's when things really started to pick up. Then there was a spear that happened where they have that little canopy area where they do a little, where some people do promos facing towards the ring. That was really cool. Overall, just a great match. Again, it felt like anybody could have won it at a certain point, but hey, the boss had to win it at the end, and that was Tony D. And overall, it was a great match. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was probably the best wrestling match that they had on the show. I guess that was my one problem with this week with NXT. There was a lot of matches that ended in DQ. We had Callie Armstrong from Evolve Women's World Champion. She made her NXT debut in a match. She was facing. Bring it up real quick. She had faced Carmen Petrovich. But that match ended quickly through a DQ because Jordan Grace just came out super pissed trying to get answers as to why Blake Monroe had jumped her and whatnot. So we didn't really get much of it, but from the little that you saw, it was like, if you haven't watched Evolve, Kelly Armstrong looked really great in there as well, but obviously we wanted a little bit longer. Um, the other thing that stood out to me was the Obafemi Josh Briggs Inamura promo that happened in the ring. Uh, the continuation of the events of what happened at Great American Bash, as I kind of spoke to earlier, where Josh Briggs was doing everything in his power to interfere in Inamura's match and help him win the title. But when Inamura saw that there was some shenanigans being played, he didn't want to win the title like that. And there was some, like, the way the match was playing out. Inamura, the referee was knocked out, I believe, and he had the 3 count. It was that moment, like, they pin him, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you look up, he's like, oh, the ref's knocked out, and he saw Briggs was interfering in his match, and he's like, yo, bro, I'm trying to do this with honor, and it led to his downfall. And then Briggs again coming in there, kind of speaking for Inamura in a sense. I love how Inamura came out and was like, bro, you don't need to speak for me. I said I'm gonna do it my way. I'm gonna do it my way. Do it with honor. Again, I don't think Obafemi's going to lose in this triple threat match, but it is going to lead to the separation. It looks like of Josh Briggs and Amora. But man, it should be a great match because again, Josh Briggs is low key. He's been having some great matches recently. He's a really big guy that can do a lot of like high aerial moves as well, kind of similar to like Jacob Fatu in a sense. And then yeah, Inamura and Obafemi, those look like that would just be a great long term like rivalry that can always be had just because they just are so imposing and they just have a way about how they carry themselves as wrestlers as far as their characters goes where it's like, man, this you can do this even without the title. This is just about like who is the best at what they do. Kind of like on the Gunther level as well. Like Inamura, Gunther, and Obafemi would be a hell of a match. I would love to see that match at like a WrestleMania and whatnot. But I really like this promo. I really like how Josh Briggs is kind of being this asshole, and Inamura is trying to be the upstanding guy. And then Obafemi again, like he has the respect for Inamura. It's not even really beef with Inamura. It's more of like, yo, we didn't get the end match the way we wanted to end our match properly, and he'd rather give him his rematch. But again, Josh Briggs got to just butt his nose into it. But it should be a fun match next week. I'm really looking forward to how that match ends out next week. And then we also had a surprise appearance from a TNA Impact star, Masha Slamovich, debuts, and she pins JC Jane. And this is lead into, I believe that's happening tonight or maybe this weekend, this Sunday. TNA Slammiversary, where it is a title for title match between Masha Slamovich and her TNA Championship versus JC Jane and her NXT Championship, and it's a winner take all match. So, will we see TNA take a WWE title to their show, or is JC Jane going to continue this run of like keep doubting me, and I'm gonna make you pay for your worth. I'm gonna make you pay for doubting me, while I just collect everything. So JC Jane might end up walking with 2 belts around here, or we might see something that I don't think Moody and I either believe that would ever happen is that a WWE title being taken by another promotion. But I don't know. It doesn't look good that Masha Slamovich got the win on NXT. It almost feels like JC Jane might win it, but this easily can obviously end in a DQ and a no contest, and they each retain their titles. So it should be. It should be. Is that mood? I said I hope so, but Masha isn't big enough in the wrestling world. That would be wild. That's the thing. That's why I see. The more I think about it, I think if it's a straight up singles match, saying that meaning that there is disqualifications in this match, I can see this match ending in a DQ, no contest, and they each retain their titles. I, as much as it might be hard to see to see Masha Slamovich take a WWE title on the TNA, I find it hard to see JC Jane holding 2 world championship belts for 2 companies. So I'm gonna go DQ interference, and we might run this back at another time, but it it's if they actually pull the trigger on either one of them, it's going to be surprising. But we'll see how that turns out. We'll see how that turns out. But that was a good appearance too as well. Oh, Moody, you had the Obafemi and Obafemi Briggs and Amora for the titles at Shake. Um, and you had the Jordan Grace rampage, and yeah, that was when I was talking about the Kelly Armstrong. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Like I said, like I wish I'd leave it at Shake as well because I was like, did you have to interfere in the match? Can we have the match at least? That's what I was kind of looking forward to. So I get it. She's like this, super brawlic woman that like yeah, when she's pissed off, you don't want her pissed off, and so it fit well with the character. I was just like, man, I was kind of looking forward to seeing Callie Armstrong. So that's just me. I guess that's just saying I should watch Evolve more often. But pretty decent show of uh of the bodega uh of NXT. Nothing too much to write home about, but a good, good continuation of just a pretty decent episode coming off of Great American Bash. All right, before we get into Dynamite, we got some current event news. Now, we had saw Jelly Roll on SmackDown last week prior to all of the wrestling festivities that was happening, and he was in a segment with Logan Paul and Randy Orton, and then Drew McIntyre comes out of nowhere, Claymore kicks Randy Orton, uh, get shenanigans at Saturday night's main event for Randy to go over on Drew, and now we are set up for a tag team match at SummerSlam with Jelly Roll and Randy Orton versus um, Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre. And promotion for this match, we had Jelly Roll, I believe, was doing either he was hosting the show or he was just like on a segment for it to be the host. He was interviewing Randy Orton, and then all hell broke loose. Drew McIntyre comes out. He starts jaw jacking with Randy. They end up getting the fisticuffs. They ended up going fighting into the back, and they kind of go off the stage. Then all of a sudden, Logan Paul comes out of nowhere, and he starts jawing at Jelly Roll. He starts being very inflammatory to him, making very rude comments about to Jelly Roll, calling him like trailer park and trash and all that stuff, just typical heel stuff. And then Jelly Roll choke slams Logan Paul to a table. Now the table didn't look like the widest table, so Logan Paul looked like he looks like he's fine afterwards, but it looked like it could have been a rough spot if not done exactly well because there wasn't much. It wasn't the typical size WWE table. It looked a little bit smaller, but um, entertaining segment. It was an entertaining segment. I gotta give him props for it as far as like the cross promotion and how it was done. It's something that we have felt like we used to see like way back in the days, like even before my time. It was like you would see on the '80s, like late '80s, early '90s, when like they would just be on these talk show hosts. Now when you see someone going to talk shows like John Cena with a Rock, and they're usually going there not as like their wrestling personas, they're there as like me. We're trying to promote our movie or a TV show. So this was actually really interesting to see like an actually wrestling kind of promo segment happening on network national late night television, and I thought it was done really well. As much as I say I do not care for this match at all, do not care at all whatsoever for this match. But I'll have to give props where props due. The segment was done really well, and it was really enjoyable. So if you haven't go seen it, it's on YouTube. It's called Jelly Roll Interview with Randy Orton, and I believe again, all hell breaks loose after that, and it turned out to be a really entertaining segment for everyone involved. And it does its job for as far as getting the casual fan to like possibly tune in for SummerSlam to even watch this match. So shout out to everyone involved. Let's get into the coffee shop. AEW Dynamite. This was another great show for AEW. One thing that I was worried about was what AEW was that like now that we came off the high of like the 2.5 months of build for All in Texas, that we might be hitting this downslope of AEW. And nah, they had a really good show, really great show. Moody was a little bit higher on the show than I was. Things that he was high on that he gave Primos for was he is hyped for Okada's next challenger, which is Swerve Strickland. And I thought it was done well because Swerve came out and then it was short and sweet. He, pulled out Okada's line of calling people bitch before he could call him one, and then they just kind of had a little stare down in the middle of the ring. But it's gonna be coming soon. I don't know when their next pay per view is, so I'm curious to see how much build we have until that. But again, that should just be a great high quality match. Like you're not gonna miss out, and the storylines are gonna be good as well. So looking for, I have that. I believe I put that at mid rising, just because I'm curious to see how the bill plays out. But I know Moody, those are your two guys, so I know you're really just hyped just for even having the match for that. So that should be great. And then you also had the Hangman, Hobbs, and Briscoe defeating the Death Riders. Yeah, great match, and that's Hangman's first. Obviously he's not defending the title here, but having him come out with the title and going against these guys, and then hey, it's a new era of AEW. It's a new era of AEW, and it's the Hangman era, and they got the win as you would imagine. So that was also a very entertaining match. My favorite match personally was I have this as mid rising, was Josh Alexander, and the Young Bucks defeating Bandito, Brody King, and Jet Speed. I really liked the entire segments that they had with the Young Bucks when they first arrived into their locker room, and then somebody scratching out their old kind of nameplate on their dressing room door and just writing Matt and Nick, and not calling them Matthew or Nicholas. They stripped down all of their music to just being regular. It doesn't have that Succession kind of music anymore. So they just was really playing as like, oh, you are no longer being held up into this higher regard as like the EVPs. You guys are just some regular old Joes. Go into the ring, go do your work. You ain't getting no extenuated props on this. We are just doing this. But once the match got kicked off, it was great, as you would imagine. The ending segment with how the match ended with Bandito just taking like a plethora of different finishing moves and then eventually being put into a chokehold submission where ended up in a technical knockout. Just looked it was really well done. And so I really enjoy that match. Moody on his side, and I pretty much agree with him on all of this. Hangman and Tony Storm each had their State of the Union addresses. Hangman kicked off the show. His was very much, almost shoot level, where he was just basically saying, you got you deserve a chance, you deserve a chance, and then he was like, nah, see that's where you're wrong. Y'all deserve it. Y'all deserve it because you guys are the reason why we're able to do this and why we have all this opportunity. Very brand focused, thanking the crowd for just being a part of AEW and just giving them the opportunity to do what they had to do and giving them, again, we say it's like WWE doesn't need to be the only person in town. The fact that a place like AEW and even TNA exists in the United States and they're actually getting like television time and not something you have to like, dig so deep down to earth to find, wrestling. It's like, okay, cool. Like, that's awesome that you don't have to be on WWE to have a living, to be able to be successful in the wrestling industry. You could do it at AEW and you could have a passionate fan base that will rock with you. And, it was a great State of the Union dress, especially like as far as like, hey, I'm your champion. This is the turn of a page. This is a new era of AEW. We got your championship back on television. It was great. And then Tony's was great as well. And Tony was just being Tony, doing her normal Tony shtick. It was really well done. She had Athena color out, just telling her basically in a Naomi fashion, hey, proceed with caution because I'm coming. And, you better be on the lookout because I got this contract that lets me get in my title match. And so it is going to be interesting to see what happens with Tony right now because obviously you have Athena in the background with a title match. But again, who's going to be also that next challenger to end up facing Tony Storm for the championship? Maybe Megan Bain. There's still a lot of contenders out there. You also had Thekla defeating Queen Aminata, Chris Statlander, and Willa Nightingale for the like $100,000 match. But within that, we saw Thekla join forces with the Goth Girl faction of Sky Blue and Julia Hart. That was surprising a little bit. As it was happening on television, the camera work wasn't the best because they kind of were cutting away. the camera had cut away to somebody on the ramp. I forget exactly who it was. I think it was Willow Nightingale was chasing, I think, Chris Statlander away. And so it was just Queen Aminata, I believe, that was in the ring. And all of a sudden you just saw, you missed the action where Sky Blue and Julia Hart came in and interfered. And afterwards you saw them all kind of hold each other's hands up in the ring. So we have a new women's faction also on the show. So it was a great show. Two more things. Moody has this as shake. We had Kyle Fletcher defeating Mascara Dorado. Pretty, again, great match. Not much build to it, but it was a great match, especially you needed this more so for Kyle Fletcher because, again, everybody thought Kyle Fletcher was going to win on at All In, even before, they made it to a fatal four-way when he was originally going to face Adam Cole. It was kind of highly predicted that Kyle Fletcher was going to win, and he didn't end up winning. This kind of gets him back on his little winning, at least get back on a winning path. So Kyle Fletcher winning against Moscato Dorado, that was a good match. And then Cope wants revenge on FTR, Spear Stokely. So Cope came out. He gave a very actually rationale, a very good reasoning that provided some good rationale as to why he didn't help. He helped Christian, but you thought that you were going to get at All In, like the brotherly hug and Edge and Christian are back together, but that didn't happen. He just told him, hey, go find yourself. And then he basically told the crowd why he did what he did and why he said to Christian. It was basically an effect of, I told him what was going to happen, that this was going to happen, that they were going to turn on you because you're just a selfish piece of asshole. And so the fact that this happens, like, you brought this on yourself, in the words of Martin, you know what I'm saying? Martin Lawrence. But he's like, that's him. He's going to have to do with him. He's a grown-ass man. I'm worried about FTR. So, obviously that's how Edge was, or Cope was last seen, was getting written off TV, being taken out by FTR. Now he wants to get his revenge. Stokely Hathaway was in the ring, and he was just a body to get a body. He took a spear, and it was a good, decent return. But I really appreciated Edge's rationale in regards to Christian, and why the way things and how things played out, the way that things played out on that show. So AEW Dynamite, great episode of Dynamite coming off of a spectacular All In Texas. So I gotta look on the calendar and see when their next pop-up show is. But I know they have one. I believe the same week as, it might be Clash in Paris, because they believe they're doing Clash in Paris. There's an NXT like Heat Wave, and I believe that's the same week that the next AEW pop-up show is. So because WWE is trying to always put on shows the same time that AEW is putting them on. So we're gonna be stuck with a few more of these all-day wrestling weekends. It feels like a lot more in the near future. But as we make our way through this week, let's get us into some history, and let's stop into the gallery for the Book of Wrestling. All right, the Book of Wrestling. Moody did his job, and one of them, I'll start off with the match, because I don't have too much context. That's usually Moody's part. Sorry, played that twice on accident. But yeah, the match of the week was Joe Kapatsu versus Jonah. Yes, it was as good as you think it was. And so this was Jonah is Bronson Reed. And this was at House of Glory. Not sure when the date was on this. I can open it up if I have a date. This was June 25th, 2022. I have not watched this match, so I can't speak on it. But I can imagine, just with these two men in the ring and their size and ferocity that they could have, this was just nothing but a just a bruising match that left everybody scarred. And yeah, I'll check it out as soon as we get off the pod, and I'll give you my thoughts on it next week if I remember it. But for actual factual history of this week in wrestling, this is a pretty big one. I can't believe it's been 5 years since COVID happened, but July 19th, 2021, the return of pay-per-views, pop-up shows, PLEs, whatever you want to call them. WWE held their first pay-per-view in the front of fans for 18 months with Money in the Bank at the Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas. With the full arena of fans now allowed into the arena for the first time since the start of COVID-19 pandemic, the main event saw Roman Reigns defeat Edge to retain the Universal Championship. After the match, John Cena made his first appearance since WrestleMania in April 2020 as he came out to confront Reigns. The only title change of the night saw Charlotte Flair defeat Rhea Ripley for the Raw Women's Championship. Nikki ASH, remember her? Superhero Nikki. Wow. And Big E were the winners of the women and men's Money in the Bank ladder matches, respectively. And on Raw, the show started with Vince McMahon boisterously asking fans, "Where the hell have you been?" In the ring, highlight of the night was seeing Edge, Dominic Mysterio, and Rey Mysterio defeat Roman Reigns and the Usos. The show saw Finn Balor make his return to the WWE main roster after almost 2 years on working on the NXT brand. So, again, crazy that the pandemic is 5 years ago at this point. It's time flies, man. Time flies. And again, it's like a demarcation of just, you know, when you enter a whole new generation, the world completely changed after that, where it's like, hey, like, remember there was like a pre-COVID time and it's like BC COVID and then after COVID time. And so glad that we are able to go out and see things in public and be around one another. WWE show. If you haven't been to a live show, whether it be a house show, which they don't really do much anymore, but any WWE show is really great to be around. The atmosphere is great. The music's great. It just hits you in your juices. It feels way different than watching it at home, watching it in public, in a stadium with a raucous crowd where everybody's just having a good time. AEW, yeah, highly recommend anybody going to a wrestling show, especially while they're affordable because WWE shows are getting pricier. But that is a short book of wrestling this week. We are jamming through this episode of Raw of the Wrestling Rhea. That's what happens when you're on a solo dolo episode. Let's get into the final wrestling show of the week, SmackDown. And SmackDown was pretty good. It was pretty good. Gotta find the actual match card because I don't have it listed here, but I did watch it in person, so you can't get knock me on that. Just trying to keep myself coherent. Uh I don't think I would say I have anything I would say I don't think I would say I have anything primo in here, but there was a lot of interesting kind of thing. Again, this is coming off of a heavily built up weekend of wrestling that now we kind of have to not reshuffle, but reorganize and rebuild and restart or just kind of start new storylines as we build into this. So the show started off with them in the backstage parking lot area where there was an accident of some sort, a car accident. Exactly, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but the My Family Tree sounds like a children's PBS show. Uh, they were in a car accident and they were blaming Jacob Fatu, and then he ends up getting taken by police back to the police station for having more questions and whatnot. That was an interesting aspect. I would put that as mid just for the fact that not Jacob, Solo just makes it so entertaining with how cartoonishly evil he is, and when he gets on his like laughs and stuff like that, he makes it very entertaining, even though it's cartoonish in moments, but it just works. He's one of the funniest guys on the show. One of the funniest guys on the show. I really enjoy it. We have that. Yeah, we got a. They also announced that is going to be a steel cage match at at SummerSlam between Jacob Fatu and Solo. So that should be fun, and we'll see how that kind of plays out. Does Jacob finally get his revenge? Does he get his title back, or does Solo find a way to retain it through some shenanigans. Like I already said before, Charlotte Flair is enjoying this kind of face. I guess it's not. I wouldn't say it's clearly official, but the tide is turning on Charlotte right now. Thank God that people are now letting her are wanting to cheer for her as she's working with Alexa Bliss. They have these funny shirts where they said "We are not friends" shirts, but she ended up getting a tag team match for her and Alexa versus Judgment Day at Survivor SummerSlam. And she also asked Alexa to be in her corner on Friday, and Alexa was like, "What do I look like, a cheerleader to you?" And then she looked at her, and she was clearly dressed up as a cheerleader, and she was like, "Yeah," and she was like, "You're goddamn right." And so it's like a weird friendship, but hey, it works. And then again, these two are like the legends again, if you want to say, of like this generation, the old timers, if you want to say, of this generation. That it's gonna be hard to see them lose. Uh, the same thing that we said at Evolution. It's gonna be hard to see Alexa and Charlotte Flair lose. And so Charlotte had a match with Raquel Rodriguez. That was a pretty decent match. Again, Charlotte is very hard to see her lose. Carmelo Hayes, writing checks that his ass can't cash. He ends up in a match with Damian Priest. Ended up in a no contest because Aleister Black came out of nowhere. Well, Damian Priest was looking for him, and then finally during the match, Aleister Black makes his presence felt, and then ends up black masking him and taking him out, which caused a no contest. But nice to see Carmelo get some shine and get some talk, even though, like, again, at least he didn't take the loss, so I'll give that as a shake. Um, Stephanie Vaquera defeated Alba Fire. She's going to be facing Stephanie Vaquera is going to be facing. I think she has a title match. They said I could be wrong. Either way, yeah, she has a title match at Clash of Champions, not at SummerSlam. But we'll find out what she's going to do at SummerSlam. Nothing official yet. Maybe she might have a tag team match with Nikki Bella, maybe against the Secret Hervis or some kind of nature of that. Or maybe there's a three-way. Maybe it's the Bello twins and Stephanie Vaquera versus Chelsea Green and the Secret Hervis. So we'll see what comes out for Stephanie for SummerSlam because you know she's got to be on that card. Probably the match of the night. Probably not. It is the match of the night. DIY, Fraxian, Motor City Machine Guns, and Andrade versus Ray Phoenix. The fatal four-way tag team match for the number one contenders for the tag team titles, SmackDown tag team titles. Yeah, obviously, when you put the quality of talent of this match and it's together, you know you're gonna get fire. Your only guess is like who you think is gonna win, and I'm actually glad Andrade and Ray Phoenix won. They've been killing it for a team that again we don't really like Frankenstein teams, but for some reason they work. They work, and so it was really entertaining. I'm glad that they won, and I'm really excited to see them face off the Wyatts coming up at SummerSlam. Do I think they're gonna lose? Do I think the Wyatts are gonna lose? No, I don't. But nonetheless, it should be a really great match to see. And then finally, and I would put this as so I would probably put the DIY Fatal Four Way Tag Team match. I would put that as my primo for SmackDown, just barely, just barely. I guess the edge for primo is just because the fact that Andrade and Ray Phoenix did win, and there wasn't one of the other three tag teams. Not to say anything wrong with them. It's just the fact, hey, a different flavor, than the typical that we usually get. But then the end of the show was John Cena and Cody Rhodes contract signing, and I will have this as mid stable. Like contract signings are contract signings. Like you've seen one, you pretty much seen them all. They all kind of typically go the same way. John Cena tried to play it a little different, saying that like, hey, I got a busy schedule. I don't think I could do it. I'm not gonna. I can't sign this contract because I just can't make it to uh to SummerSlam. I'm just too booked up for it. That got Cody tight. John Cena was trying to leave. That got Cody tight. He comes, gets John Cena as he's walking away, beats him up, throws him in the ring, uh, lays him down on the table, and then grabs the contract, comes up to the top rope and does a body splash and puts John Cena through the table. And then now I don't again. Sure, this is kayfabe, but like, come on now, like that's not Cody Rhodes. Then on live television, grabs John Cena's hand, puts a pen in his hand, and then uses his hand to scribble John Cena's name on the contract and says, "Look, John, you signed the contract." And I'm like, bro, this is all on television. That is clearly not a legal contract. He is not legally binding to be able to do that. Like y'all gotta do a little better than this. If that's how that is not a legally binding contract. I hope that is mentioned. Because if they're like, oh well, you're bro, we all saw it. He did it in front of everybody. He did it in front of everybody. You ain't telling me that's. I get it. I get it. Again, that's where it's like you. This is like the PG storyline. If you had to grade out each storyline as far as like what their rating is, like that's a PG storyline. If you want me to believe that, yeah, John Cena had the pen in his hand, and even though he was unconscious and was just put through a table, yeah, and I clearly saw Cody's hand moving John Cena's hand on that contract. Yeah, that's a legally binding contract. Now we have John Cena versus Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. No, we don't. It is still unofficial. It's still unofficial. And again, if this is Adam Pierce would not know what to do because he's a bozo as far as letting his show get off the rocks. But Nick Aldis, you better say something because that is not a legally binding contract. You know that. I know that. We know that. And so we need further investigation of what happened because I am not saying right now that match is still unofficial. And we need to get more clarification on if that Cody Rhodes John Cena match is happening at SummerSlam. Other than that, SmackDown was pretty good. Again, it was a pretty good week. You know, this is the calm down. Not everything could be at a high this week because again, we just came off again. Like I said, a presidential week of wrestling. That it'd be exhausting just to continue to have that energy for another week. So they did a good job of having the moments of reflection, celebration, and now we're building up some new storylines, whether it be for the next couple of weeks or for the next couple of months or for the next, up until the end of the new year, and into the end of the year. But it seems like now we're kind of getting over that summer hump now, especially as we're getting closer to fall right now. So other than that, it was a pretty great week all around from wrestling. Again, coming off from a spectacular weekend and then coming out with pretty much decent shows all around. Nothing really to complain of much. I mean, like it was all entertaining. Nothing too high, but there was all things that kept you intrigued and want you to keep watching for the next few weeks to see what happens. So shout outs to AEW, NXT, and WWE for their shows. And that is the week in wrestling. I do not have champions this week. Your boy is slacking. That's what happens when I'm on a solo dolo episode. So I will make sure next week I will have 2 champions of the week to make up for this one that I've missed out this week. So next week I will do my best to make sure I got 2 champions. We will have the French Fry Pro back in effect to give you his thoughts and clarify anything else that I may have missed. If he wanted to say I misspoke for him and he wanted to clear me up, please go ahead and clear me up. But that will do it for this amazing episode of the Wrestling Re-Up, episode 54. This is Wrestling Cinema, and we are just living in it. What a time to be alive. Thank you for everyone for joining in, for commenting, and just being a part of the show. Follow us everywhere on social medias. Please like, subscribe, follow, comment, do all the social media activity. We're on Twitch. Well, we'll be on Twitch, Twitter, formerly known as X, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok. Find us everywhere at the Wrestling Re-Up. And we'll catch y'all next week for episode 55 as we continue our way to the next pop-up show that we have coming up next is SummerSlam, which by this calendar date, it is officially 2 weeks away. So it's in 2 Saturdays from now, at the beginning of beginning of August is when we get SummerSlam. And so more points on the line. There'll be 2 points on the line because it's a 2-night affair. So we'll see how we can build that gap. But right now, like I said, we are even on the season. Rudy has the overall record still ahead at 15-7-5, I want to say. Or 15-7 15-5, 15-7-7, I think is what the record is right now. But for the official season 2 record, it's 2-2-4. So we're even on that side. But yeah, that is it for me. The Habasha Hayes, French by Fro. We'll see y'all next week and talk to y'all later. Deuces, y'all.